the YouTube.
Okay, I'll let her know. This was one that had previously made a victim impact statement.
Got it. Okay, perfectly entitled to hear what's going on.
Thank you, Judge.
Sure, thanks for asking. All right, well, we're live, so everyone behave. Okay, if we go back to the normal order of the calendar, we had Ms. Foster. Next is Johnny Miller. I don't have a name there, but Ms. Patel's on the call, and I don't have any other case that's hers. So is this yours?
Yes, Your Honor, it will be my case. Mr. Miller was arrested on a warrant, so his clean arraignment will be his first clean arraignment court date. I have pre-tried this with the state. I have an offer I need to convey to him. I don't think it will resolve the case, but with that being said, just looking at the file, it seems like this is going to be a drug court or treatment-based case. And so I'll have Ms. Nelson pick a clean arraignment date, but it doesn't seem like this will be a case that we can quickly move in the next month or so.
Okay. You don't have to disclose client confidences, of course, but why, if drug court is the right end result for Mr. Miller, why wouldn't that happen real quickly so that he is beginning to get treatment rather than sitting in jail?
Right. Well, so the move is certainly to have him interviewed by both, but just based on what I've seen thus far, I need to talk to my social worker about whether there are more intense programs out there.
Okay.
And if drug court is the best fit, then that will be the one that we stick with. But just wanting to make sure that he doesn't relapse anytime soon after release.
Okay, got it. Okay, so reach out to Ms. Nelson. You guys can figure out when we can get Mr. Miller on a plea and arraignment calendar. I know she's been lining up. We've got the new only floors 5 through 7 calendar. I think we're seeing some of the judges bend the rules as to where the inmates are located. And if we don't have things that are gonna take up that big block of time, rather than do no one, we'll probably add some plea and arraignment folks, because at least then people can see each other and interact a little bit, albeit virtually. So talk with Ms. Nelson, and we'll try to get Mr. Miller on there. And then as soon as you and your team have identified possible treatment options, if that's the way the case is heading, let us know and we'll see what we can do.
Okay.
All right. That brings us to Mr. Avery, who is Ms. Snyder's client. We had a bond hearing, so I'm not sure why we're back on, but we're back on. What's going on?
It was, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
It was Miss Clark, Angela Clark with the PD's office did his bond hearing. And then during the course of the bond hearing, we got information from the state that there is another person connected to this case that has an open case in another courtroom. And so it was back on to make sure that I got assigned. And then there was something about a video from MARTA or an interview.
Oh, look, yes, it just goes to the other page, right. Apparently, and I'll let Ms. Hall update us. I'm sure she's got a great update, but I'm remembering more about the case now, that there was an interview, and the interview may well have been Mr. Avery saying, yeah, you got me, and there's this other person involved. Ms. Hall, what's going on with the Avery case?
The agency reached back out to me this morning. Sergeant Bell reached out to me. He said that he had been pulled because of the protest, so he would have given me all the evidence last week, but it is ready for pickup now. So I got the information this morning. My investigator will get the information on Thursday. I will then have my legal assistant copy it next week when she comes back in on Tuesday or Thursday, and I will hand that over to defense counsel. The only other outstanding discovery that I will need to give to Ms. Snyder and the if we're keeping it in your courtroom, or however we're doing it to even the other attorney for the co-defendant, it would be the 911 call. But everything else I would give her between the early next week or late next week.
Okay, I think I'm remembering this case now, and this is where we heard from the victim. Her Audi was in the MARTA station. She was just coming back from an event and
Going to an event.
had her car taken. The car was recovered, but there were two. She described there being two assailants,
Right.
and then there was MARTA footage and whatnot. Okay, so you believe that Sergeant Bell has pulled together a package for you, Ms. Hall, that will contain, other than the 911 call, the missing pieces. In these complicated times, it's like an 18-step process where your investigator, who can only go out a certain day of the week, will get it, and then you'll have it, but to get it duplicated, your paralegal can only come in a certain day of the week. That person will duplicate it, and then you'll be able to say to Ms. Snyder, so then Ms. Snyder will be able to get the paperwork. Right now, the indictment is just Mr. Avery. So am I remembering correctly? But the state believes they know who person number 2 is. You can't indict anyone right now. Person number 2 has an open case in another courtroom. That's why Ms. Snyder came on board for Mr. Avery. But person number 2, and I'm not trying to disguise his name, I just don't remember it. He or she can't be added to the Avery case until we have grand jurors again, and that's not going to be for a while. Is that sort of where we are procedurally, Ms. Hall?
Yes.
Okay.
The co-defendant does have an open case in Judge Krause's courtroom, but correct on everything else. We have to re-indict it to add him to this case.
Okay. That doesn't mean Mr. Avery necessarily needs to wait. If he is in a position to move his case forward, he can do that. But he may want to wait for the co-defendant. Who knows? That's a Ms. Snyder discussion for Mr. Avery. But certainly you'll want to get that discovery material to Ms. Snyder. And now we know that Ms. Snyder has taken over representation of Mr. Avery. Do you recall, Ms. Hall, if the case with the co-defendant in Judge Krause's courtroom is an older or a newer indictment?
His case is older.
Okay.
His indictment is older than our case.
Okay. All right. So technically, this case would bounce to Judge Krause if it got re-indicted. But Ms. Snyder, I'm not interested in waiting on that. If it happens, it happens. And then in theory, it could go there. But I will tell you that if we're close to resolving the case, I tend to tell Ms. Nelson not to send it to the other judge, in particular for the defendant, because then he or she has a brand new lawyer and it's much more of a reset than it is for the prosecutor to have the case bounce to the other courtroom. Do you know what the charges are for the co-defendant in Judge Krause's courtroom? Because that's the other thing to consider. If it's a shoplifting case, it almost makes more sense to say, send that one to us. If and when that other person gets added to the Avery case.
I don't, off the top of my head, I did have it written down, but I can get it.
It's not critical because we can't add anyone to any case right now anyway. Despite Mr. Howard announcing that he's going to indict all these police officers, there's not a lot he can do until we get grand jurors in, and don't hold your breath on that process.
So, Your Honor, I was able to find on Odyssey the supposed co-defendant has multiple open cases in front of Judge Krause and with some CWAC charges. So they're
okay.
serious.
We will not be taking those cases. Those will be staying with Judge Krause. So that said, Ms. Snyder, I guess you will have the opportunity to say, does it make sense to try to resolve this before my client has to be sitting next to that other guy at the defense table or what? But certainly you need the discovery first. I All right, well, I think that's the to-do then coming from this. You know, I ruled on the bond motion. I don't think anything changes at this juncture. If there, it turns out that MARTA really didn't provide much at all, just another copy of a police report that you already had, then if we need to talk about bond because the state is having trouble producing what it ought to produce, let's do that, and we'll give everyone notice that we're going to have that conversation. But otherwise, assuming that what the sergeant has available for pickup is meaningful to include, if I remember correctly, a potential confession by Mr. Avery. It may be that Mr. Avery just needs to figure out how quickly he wants to work the case out. But you guys will discuss those things, and I'll just bring us back together if and when it's time to work through something, whether it would be a motion to suppress or a plea or whatever's out there. So you think, Ms. Hall, by the end of next week, the discovery would be available for Ms. Snyder because it will have been picked up and duplicated, and then you'll let Ms. Snyder know it can be collected.
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay. All right. Ms. Snyder, anything more on Mr. Avery's case?
No, sir.
Okay. All right. Worst case scenario, are you going to need to have surgery, or it's just a question of how long do you have to have it immobilized?
I think it's how long it has to be immobilized. It's just a crack in the bone, and it ruptured the bursa. So.
Ouch. Well, it makes you look very tough, but I'm sure it's not a lot of fun. How about you, Ms. Hall? You were in a cast. Is it gone? Look at that.
Oh,
See, there's proof. You do get better. So there's hope for you. All right. I think that's the calendar. Ms. Hall, any updates from the DA's office? You guys coming back to the building anytime soon?
Ms. McCauley said she hasn't heard anything, but I think that means we're coming back.
Okay. We expect to get an update from the Chief Justice any day now about what the next order from him will be. Government Center, I think the county administrative offices are opening next Monday. Tentative date was supposed to be this Monday, but things got more complicated, not less. So next Monday, and we are in active discussions to be able to reopen the courthouse, at least for employees, if not for lots of court events, as soon as we get that next bit of guidance from the Chief Justice. And in case it wasn't clear from the email I sent out, as far as you all are concerned on the criminal side, we will not be returning to 50 position calendars with the gallery full of family members on the victim and the defendant side and the holding cells teaming with defendants. It will be the opposite. Initially, the most number of defendants we'd have in lockup would be 2, 1 in each cell. And we would also be staggering for folks who are on bond arrival time. So there might be 2 cases at 9 and the next 2 wouldn't be till 10, so that it is easier for there to be space between everyone. So that's the plan. And I've heard from most folks that they're willing to slowly come back and engage as long as those types of precautions are being taken. I hadn't heard back from you, Ms. Snyder, but that may have been because you were in the emergency room. But are you, assuming you're able to move about, are you able to return to action under those kinds of circumstances?
As long as it's safe, I'm good with coming back.
Okay, well, and that's the right caveat to put on it. And that's what my team has told me, like, hey, Judge, we'll come back as long as ... And so we'll try it out. And if folks aren't comfortable, they just need to let me know and we'll work on it in a different way. So I'll keep you posted as I learn more about the courthouse reopening. Hopefully your bosses will do the same, but it may be that you hear it from us before you hear it from them. All right, I think that's it. Ms. Patel, anything more from you?
Actually, I did have a quick question for the court as well as Ms. Nelson. I'm not sure if either of you would know. Do you know if PTI is physically coming to court to sign people up?
I don't know the answer to that.
We can find that out. That is find outable. So I'll ask Ms. Nelson to inquire. You should as well, Ms. Patel, but that's a great question. As we start bringing bond folks in, and maybe even a few jail folks, that may be the way we're sorting these things out. And it doesn't help to be told, well, PTI isn't here. So let's research that, and then we'll shoot an email to all the stakeholders about that. Are you in your office?
Yes,
Look at that.
I had to make a few calls.
Yeah, your plant doesn't look very happy.
Yeah. Been neglected for a minute.
Yeah. All right. Well, I'm glad you're back there. Okay. Ms. Snyder, anything else?
No, sir.
All right. We're holding a thought for your, what is that? That's your left arm. Your left arm. Hopefully it's good prognosis. Well, thank you everyone for dialing in. I think let me check Outlook here. We will next be together, Friday, big day. We've got something in the morning and something in the afternoon. So put on your Zoom clothes and we'll take care of whatever we're doing on the 5th. Mr. Church, any questions?
No, sir. Thank you, everybody.
All right. Well, welcome aboard. So, Ms. Patel, you don't get an intern? They only give them to Mr. Franklin?
Oh, I have a feeling Mr. Franklin and I will be sharing Mr. Church. Not that your property, Mr. Church. It's nice to meet you.
All right.
You as well.
Equal exploitation. That's smart.
Right.
Okay. Well, good. All right. Well, thank you, everyone. Be safe.
Okay,
Right.
take care.
Bye.
Thank you,
Thank
Ms.
you.
Washington.
You're
Sort of
welcome,
uneventful for you, but we appreciate you making yourself available.
It was good listening.
All right. Well, it's good having you here.
All righty. Bye-bye.
Bye.